Okay, so welcome back. So we were at the code book, right? You need to have the code book, for example, the code name, the definition or meaning of that code, and the example quotation from the data. Okay, so for example, the quotation was, "My eyes hurt after Zoom classes." So what does it mean? It means that this participant is tired of the long session, online session, I mean. So what does actually this mean, the tiredness? It is called digital fatigue. You name this code from this quotation, and this was the definition to this code. You need to have a complete book of the codes from the date like this. After that, you need to revise the data, merge if there is something that is overlapping ideas, I mean, so you need to merge them. If there is something, a very big code or very big theme, you need to divide it to two, like split them. And like the second thing is like sometime when you are doing the coding, there is a lot of irrelevancy and you need to delete the irrelevant themes. For example, you have a code that is really good, but that does not have to do anything with your research objectives or your research questions. So just remove it. Don't say like, oh, it's very important, let's change my question. Why would you change the whole question and whole research? Because your questions were the product of a thorough literature review. So don't change your questions for just a piece of data. And the last one is reflection. The last two steps, these are really uncommon among the researchers. And that is why the research data or the research impact is not that much in these third world countries like India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and so on. And that is like we don't revise, we don't reread, we don't reflect on what we do. For example, when you do all this process, ask yourself one question, and that is, why am I doing the data analysis with this method? Why am I doing coding using this way? Because you are not the authority in the field. You are just a beginner. You are a bachelor student. You are a master student. Even if you are a PhD student or you hold a PhD, you are a doctor, you are still not the authority in the field. The authority are the people before you, or the authority is the real research, not persons. So always question your research process, always question it before other people come and question it. Okay, so now you have collected the data, you have transcribed the data, you have given the codes to the data. What do you need to do? The codes. First thing is the code, like you were doing the code. And there were different approaches for the code, like the inductive, deductive, and mixed, right? One was theory oriented, one was data oriented, and the second was mixed of both products. As earlier, we said that we have different kinds of data analysis, thematic analysis, narrative analysis, content, discourse, ethnography, and so on, right? So for each one, we have a different kind of source available. So for each, we have a different kind of code available. So here are some of the codes. For example, you want to do grounded theory, which is from Strauss and Corbin. I talked on this grounded theory last week to some of the students. So you need to have open coding. Axial coding, selective coding, all these can help in grounded theory. For example, you just go for the general qualitative research, which is done in bachelor's degree. So this is descriptive coding, which is the most easier, right? The easiest one, I mean. And for example, you go with the ethnography or narrative or again, grounded theory, you can still have Vivo coding, but I will not recommend this one for bachelor's. And process coding, pattern coding for different kind of, and what is the purpose of each kind of analysis, how it works, and what could be the example I have written. You may read it later. Similarly, we have the focused coding, and this one is the thematic coding. So the one that we were just discussing here, that was about the thematic coding. like for the themes, you are looking for the themes. So in thematic coding, we still have three kind of like semantic, latent, and in thematic analysis, we call it thematic analysis, like thematic coding. We have the famous thematic analysis model from Brown and Clark from 2006, and it is the most used model from 2006 till this time. Though it has been modified in 2019, like you can see here, reflexive thematic analysis model by Brown and Clark in 2019. And it was also modified again in 2021 by Muhammad Naeem from a university in London. I don't specifically remember the name of the university, but he proposed this model in a new way. It also has 6 steps. So if you are an MPhil student, I would highly recommend these models, Brown and Clark model and Naeem et al. Model, 2022 or 21. If you are going for the thematic analysis and interview or focus group discussion, but not for the bachelor students. Okay, and also narrative coding. So you need to know what kind of code do you need, what kind of approach, and what kind of analysis are you doing. Depends on the mutual understanding of you and your supervisor, and also the data, the research questions that you wanna find answers to, and also the level of the study. Okay, because you are always limited in the time frame. Okay, so first thing was data collection done. After that, we came with the familiarization, then coding, and a lot of stuffs. So we are done with the codes or the labels. Now we need to convert the codes into the themes because we are dealing with thematic analysis. But for example, you are not doing thematic analysis. You still need to have coding. For example, from here, you can say codes to grounded theory, codes to reflexive analysis, codes to, for example, narrative analysis. So now what you need to do, you need to group related codes into one category. Then after that, when you are done with the groups, why do we need it? Because there could be more than 50 or sometimes 100 of the codes for your MPhil research. So dealing with all the codes at one time is not human capital, right? So you need to organize them in different codes, different groups, and then you need to name each group based on the mutual correlation of the codes. So it will make the process easier for you. After that, identify the patterns, similarities, and contrast. Now, when you have met the groups, find which code could be similar from this group, from group A to the group B, and group C to group E or G or H, for example. Then after that, develop themes that capture core meaning. For example, the core meaning is about the lack of motivations. So what could be, if it is the code, what could be the theme? Theme could be extrinsic and intrinsic motivation that you guys know better than me in psychology, right? So then after that, the themes must be grounded in data, not forced. This is really important. It is just a sentence, but it is really important to try to understand this thing. The themes that you want to take from the data, it should be natural, not forced. For example, a student is talking about motivation and you are saying that this student is actually tired. He needs some rest. This is called fatigue. This is digital fatigue or something else. No, he is talking about motivation. Even if he is not tired, he will still be lacking motivation. So you are actually forcing one thing from here to the theme groups. So do not force something in the data, just as it is. And secondly, the participants assess something, so don't assume things that he would mean this from this. No. That is why I said earlier that you need to read and reread the data before you start coding the data. The familiarization was the first step in coding. Okay, we have an example of the Brown and Clark thematic analysis model 2006, which I also used for a recent research. And here, this model actually follows semantic and latent and reflexive, all of these coding. It depends on you if you are going to pick semantic, latent, and reflexive. So here you can see in this diagram, the model actually has 6 steps: selection of quotations, keywords, coding, themes, conceptualization, development of conceptual model. Now, when you use this model, for example, you have the interview. Here you can see in this, there is transcripts. It means the interview data, for example, or the class observation or focus group discussion, any kind of data that you have written, like now it is in the written form. So we call it transcripts. After that, getting familiar with the data. It means that you have to read extensively again. After that, you need to find some keywords, right? So how to find the keywords? Before that, in step 1, you need to select quotations that are relevant to the research questions. After that, you find keywords from each quotation. Okay, like the keyword is actually a leading phenomena to the code. Then you need to, like, for example, the keyword for something could be motivation. So the code is lack of motivation, or it could be sense of motivation. He is full of motivation, like that. After that, in step number 4, when you are done with keywords and codes, you need to develop the theme. So what was the method for developing the theme? It was to cluster different codes into groups. When you name the group, that is called theme. So you need to name this cluster of a lot of codes into one name, and that is called the theme. Okay, so you are done with the theme, 4 step. Number 5th, and we are talking about this specific model, it is not general. Okay, so now you need to conceptualize the theme. What does this theme mean in relation to the theory, in relation to the questions of your research, and in relation to the recommendations that you are going to give to the field experts? So this is called interpretation of the themes from the codes that you have selected in the data. Now, we also call it concepts. So the interpretation will lead you to 2 things. The first thing is the understanding of the keywords, the codes, the themes, and everything. And second is the most important, presentation of the framework. Like you collected the data in the interview, which you normally transcribe. Like last year, I was doing a small research project in which I interviewed only 9 students. And when I transcribed the interview, it was 93,000 plus words. So you cannot deal all the data, and you don't have to put all the data in your research article or your thesis. You need to have the conceptual information from the data. And what is the conceptual? How do you understand? So it is not how do you, but it is about how do you as a researcher. It means what model, what theoretical framework did you follow for that? So here you have the presentation framework for the data, and which we call it in this Brown and Clark model, development of conceptual model. So you come up with a model that's based on this. This is my observation. This is my recommendation to the field experts, and we can improve this thing with this, this, and this, for example. After that, I hope that you are all active and listening, right? That I'm not just listening to the speaking to the screen. Okay. So if that is the case, let's go forward. We have coding types: open coding, axial coding, selective coding. So we start with the open, come to the axial, and then go to selective. We always start with the open coding because at the start we don't know what to do specifically. But as we read and we code data, with time we remove, we merge, we overlap, or we split, and at the end we have selective codes. So we have a lot of pages of the text. We just code, we just highlight and call it codes. After many segments of the text, when we read for the second or third time, we don't need to read each and every word from the data, but rather those segments we just highlighted. Now we just cross some of the segments because we think that these are now irrelevant. And we have 30 to 40 codes or 50, it depends on the degree level, as I said earlier. So the codes now reduced to 20. Why we reduce them? Because we need to have more richer and relevant data. So you are coming with a funnel shape, right? Open, axial, and now you become selective, reduced codes to 5 to 7 themes, because these 20 codes could be grouped 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and 2. So these are 7 groups. It could be 4, 4, 4, 4. There are 5 groups. So each group could be called one theme. You may name it with the most relevant word. The relevancy depends on the research questions again, and also the data. There is another example of the codes, and that is open codes, axial, selective theme. Actually, it's the same with the previous slide, but here it is more visual, I would say. Open codes, you have conflict, but it is an example. Equality, compromise, listening, sharing ideas, role clarification. Like these are all codes or keywords you develop from the data. We don't know what were the quotations, okay? Now, axial codes. What could be an axial code category for conflict, equality, sorry, and compromise? It could be collaboration. Okay, you may name it with a different word, depends on the theory and the questions you have. Listening is about communication. So sharing ideas is also about communication, right? Okay, role clarification is about understanding the team work or the team. So diversity is also about the team. So you name it. So what we have in a teamwork: collaboration, communication, understanding the team. So this is open code, this is axial, and this is selective theme. What is selective code, we also call it. So teamwork is, now we are going to develop a theory based on all this information. Okay, the theory could be, for example, our assumption could be teamwork is a key component of effective organizational culture. So how do you know that effective organizational culture, these words come from? Because effective organizational culture has diversity, it has solidification of the roles, it has listening, compromise, equality, and conflict resolution, a lot of things. हुई ना बात? अच्छा, तो इस तरह हम इसको आगे, मैं तो भूल गया था कि मैंने उर्दू में भी बात करनी है. आई एम सॉरी फॉर दैट, बिकॉज अगर इफ आई हैव टू स्पीक समथिंग इन वन सेंटेंस इन इंग्लिश, आई वुड गो फॉर 3 or 4 sentences फॉर दैट स्पेसिफिक थिंग इन उर्दू. सो उससे लेक्चर लंबा हो जाएगा, ये भी एक बात है. तो शुक्र है मैं भूल गया. अच्छा, अगेन, व्हाट डज इट मीन? व्हाई आई हैव this slide here? Because when I am doing all the research, I need to remind myself, what am I doing? Why am I doing it in this way? Because I am not the authority in the research. So interpretation and meaning, both are important. And so the first thing is, you don't need to describe things in your research. ChatGPT can do it better than you. You are supervisor and master of that thing. As a research, your job is to do interpretation rather than description. Interpretation means what is relevant, what is irrelevant. Take the relevant, avoid the irrelevant. Like, ask yourself, what does this mean? No, what does this mean in the context, in your context, right? Okay, so link the themes to the theory. This is the third way to do interpretation. The themes are linked to the theory you are using or not. I don't know about different theories in psychology, otherwise I would have given you just live examples. And the most important thing is the reflection on your role in shaping the meaning. I told you, because you are a human. As a researcher, you have biasness. If you think that you are bias-free, it is impossible. So what to do? You can minimize the biasness with these steps. Context, theoretical framework, link. The third thing is to know about your negatives, to know about your weaknesses. When you know about something and you are conscious about that, you can cope it. But if you don't know and you say, let it be, dekha jayega, so it means that what? You know better. Okay, so when we do like the analysis, I mean, there is a word we use. One is ethics, one is trustworthiness. Ethics is before you collect data, you have to go for each and every step. Okay. But when we do analysis, we need to be highly conscious of these four things. We call it trustworthiness in data analysis: credibility, transferability, dependability, and conformability. The first thing is credibility. The analysis that you are doing, is this credible? Does it have the true value in the research field? Does it have the social impact? The second thing is transferability, which means like the contextual relevance. Is it relevant to the research you are going to do? The third thing is dependability. Where is the consistency? Are you dependent on the theory and the research questions? या आप बिल्कुल आजाद घूमना चाहते हैं and you don't want any kind of consistency, you just want to pick some random themes. And the fourth thing is conformability. How to conform the analysis is based on a logical sequence. So you need to be neutral and you need to minimize the biasness that you hold. So what are the techniques? The first is triangulation, and triangulation means, for example, you are doing research and you have three kinds of data. The first data is classroom observation, the second is artifacts, and the third is interview. So you analyze the data for each one. You have themes from interview, you have themes from classroom observation, you have themes from artifacts. So triangulation means to verify the data analysis or the themes from one data with the help of the data from another source. Like what you got from interview is actually aligned what you got from artifacts. Yes or no? So you need to find it to ensure all these things. Secondly, if you have only one kind of data, like the interview, how to do triangulation, though there is no triangulation then you go for member checking and audit trial. How to do member checking? And this is really important. And in my life, I have never seen it in Pakistan. So, though, मेरी जिंदगी इतनी नहीं है, लेकिन नहीं देगा तो नहीं देगा. अच्छा, what is member checking? Like, you do interviews. After that, you interpret the interviews data. So now you need to hand over those interviews, interpretation back to the participants and ask them to please check them. There is the quotation that you said, and there is the understanding that I understand from you. Do you think that I am right here or not? So he will tell you that you as a researcher are not right. So you may go for the clarification. So this is called member checking. And then we have, okay, there is a question for you. I think we don't have, okay. Okay, so is it possible that your research goes as planned? Like you plan your research as it is, like, I mean, you have complete roadmap. So is it possible that it goes as you have planned? Yes or no? No, okay. So is it a bad thing? It causes you headache, you need some more coffee, you need some good friends to discuss with them that your supervisor got angry to you today. And you also need someone to talk to him, like, koi cheez bhi sahi nahi ja raha, I am stuck. It's okay, because it's the process, it's the part of the process of the researcher. Whenever your research is like that, just say, it's okay, I will deal with it. It's common in the research process. Okay. Even when you have the guidance, like some of the participants said, we need guidance. Yeah, you always have your supervisor, your co-supervisor, and your senior colleagues that guide you periodically. But still, it can never be it can never go like you have planned, because this is, I don't know how to articulate or to put this in words. It is the part of the process. So you need to understand that if you face difficulties in your research or it doesn't go as it is planned, just say it is the part of the process. It's okay. So even if it is the part of the process, you still need to understand the common practical mistakes, right? Because sometimes when you do research, you commit a lot of mistakes. And when it doesn't go as planned, you cannot say it is a part of the research, but rather you need to focus on the mistakes that you make. Again, I would say mistakes are not something that you should be always regretted or, guilty about it. No, mistakes are also the process of learning. It's okay. But the main thing is, how do you reflect on your mistakes? How do you learn from your mistakes? How do you think about them? Have you written your mistakes in your diary? Have you written your negative points and your shortcomings or your biasness towards something in the diary? If no, that is the biggest mistake. So you need to understand your own self before doing research. So during the research, the first thing should be avoid rushing analysis. Like today, you interviewed the last participant, and now you want to do analysis today, which is impossible and inhuman work. So if you are a human and you expect something that is not human, you will cause trouble for yourself. And you are a psychology student, so I don't need to elaborate on this, that you are a mental health major and this and this and that, right? So allow time for reflection, thinking, just do some coding today, leave it as it is for a few days, go for a break and then come back. So you may have some more ideas, right? Number second, do not force data to fit to pre-existing theories. For example, there's a theory that says something about your research, and you want to have the data according to that theory. Why? Because that theory was proposed by someone in a different culture, different time, different country, 1,000 miles away from your country, right? And you are expecting the data in your culture, your country, your time to fit on that theory, which is impossible. So do not force the data, keep it natural. Use peer debriefing for fresh perspectives. What is it? You ask your friends, do member checking and everything. But when you go and sit in the cafe with your friends, your colleagues, your seniors, always discuss these things with them. So you get some more fresh perspectives, opinions, or you can think from a different angle as well. Because sometimes we think that we know better about our research, but we actually miss a lot of things. For example, I can look at this thing from one angle, two or three, but I would not be looking at it from this angle. So if I talk to a colleague or a senior friend, they might guide me and I can get some spark from there. And the last point is maintain reflective notes to track biases. This is really important. And again, I would say 90% of the researchers, they don't do it in these third world countries. Like you should have a reflexive note, whether it is in your laptop, your mobile phone, or a small diary in your pocket or your handbag. Just whenever you reflect on something while you are sitting in a cafe or on a walk, you are on a walk and uh, something hit your mind, just write it down and reflect on it later on when you get to your office or home. So here are the references I have used. You may get all these books in PDF online, I would say. And if you find any difficulty, you can just contact me. I would share with them. I will share my email in the chat box. Let me write it here. And now, if you have any kind of question, you may ask. The chat box is yours. You can even raise your hand and speak directly. Yes, please. I just stopped sharing the screen. so that you may ask the questions.